Okay, let's do a couple proofs together. You could find number 7 in the packet. That's on page 25. We'll do one with a segment bisector, and then we'll do also number 11 that has an angle bisector. Okay, so let's start going with our given here. We are told that WT, segment WT, bisects segment SV. Now, we know we're going to put a bunch of tick marks on here, but what we want is to be very careful about which segments come directly from this statement. WT bisects SV. WT is the one doing the bisecting. Think of that as like that's the scissors cutting this other segment in half. So it's SV right now that is getting bisected. So we're going to put tick marks on here, and anytime you put tick marks on the diagram, that should be a step in your proof. Okay, SU congruent to UV. We're allowed to say that because we know what a bisector is. It's the definition of either just bisector or segment bisector. If you want to be more specific. We're going to do something very similar with this next given. SV bisects WT. So you'll notice this is literally just flip-flopped from what number 1 said. This time SV is the one doing the bisecting, but the one that's, whoops, I wrote that down wrong. The one that is getting bisected is, let me write that correctly there, WT. Okay, so this is the red one is getting cut in half now. So we're going to say WU is congruent to UT. You, of course, for both steps 2 and 4, could have slightly different names for those segments. You can switch the order of the letters around. You can switch which segment comes first. All of that is fine. Okay, from there, we've done everything we can with the given. So this is the stage where we go, okay, is there anything else I can say on my own from the diagram? If we look at that diagram, I'm hoping that these vertical angles pop out at you. So we're going to use the vertical angles theorem to say those angles are congruent. We just have to be careful naming them. This angle here where my mouse is right now, you can call it either SUT or TUS. Either of those names will work. The other angle you can call either WUV or VUW. Make sure you use 3 names for those. You cannot just call those angle U because we don't know which of those angles we would be talking about. Okay, once we put that marking in there, you should notice that, okay, I've got 3 pairs of markings up here. That is enough for a shortcut. So now we're ready to choose which shortcut allows us to say the triangles are congruent. If you look at just one triangle at a time, what we have marked here are 2 sides, so 2 S's and an angle. So we're going to have some combination of 2 S's and 1 A, but where they are located in the triangle is important. So we've got 2 sides marked there. The angle is between them. That's what we call the included angle. So we're going to put the A between them as well. So by side, angle, side, we can say, oops, just a smidge here so I can see those triangles, that the triangles are congruent. Now be careful naming them. Remember, the first name that you choose really doesn't matter. You can be very flexible on that first name. You could call this triangle SUT, you could call it TUS, you could call it UTS, you could call it UST. There's all sorts of options there. I'm going to go with SUT, so follow my little path here from S to U to T. Oh, I see something bad I did here on the diagram. I should have put 2 tick marks on that red side. I can fix that if you need to. Because now, here's what caught my eye. As I'm following from S to U to T, I'm noticing I passed by 1 tick mark first and then 2. So we need to make that happen over here. That means we're going to go from V to U to W in that order. If you were doing this on your own and just checking your answer, of course these could be rearranged. Just make sure S and V are in the same position. Like first letter and first letter. U are in the same, and then of course T and W. Okay. Now that we've shown the triangles are congruent, we could say all of the other corresponding parts are congruent. What they specifically cared about is angle S and angle V. They are congruent because corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. That's our CPCTC. jump to number 11. Let's do an angle bisector. My page here. Okay, so this time we are told, I'm just going to jump right in with the given here. WT bisects angle SWV. So I want you to take a second on your own first and figure out where that angle is. And I'll trace it here in a minute. SWV, take your pencil from S to W to V. It's this whole big thing here. So we are going to cut this whole big angle in half, but as soon as you put those tick marks there, that needs to show up in the proof itself as well. We are going to use the definition of an angle bisector. We know that that means to cut the angle in half into two congruent pieces. Just be careful naming them. So this kind of upper angle here is SWT or TWS. You could reverse that. The other one I'm going to call VWT. Okay. We have another given here. Oops, let me get my color coding. SW, segment SW is congruent to segment VW. That's just given to us. This guy and this guy. And then again, we've kind of used up all the given. So we think, what can we do next on our own? This time we don't have any vertical angles, but what we do have is this side right here. If we were to pull those triangles apart, would be a side of both of them. And of course they would be congruent then, but we're just going to think of this, even though it looks like one segment, think of it as two overlapping segments. We're going to say that WT is congruent to WT. We're allowed to say something is congruent to itself by the reflexive property. Now, again, we should be noticing, okay, I've got in each triangle 3 sets of tick marks are the same. I have enough for a shortcut. This particular shortcut is side, angle, side, again. So we can say our triangles are congruent. So I'm going to call the first one SWT. Triangle SWT. Make sure you don't put angle there. Congruent to triangle VWT. Again, on your own, you definitely have some other options here. Just make sure all the pieces match up appropriately. And then remember, what we could do at this point is we could mark like all the other stuff congruent that we haven't already marked. They only cared about angles S and V. But all this stuff in black here is what CPCTC lets us say. All of the other corresponding parts of those congruent triangles are congruent. They just asked about S and V. Okay, feel free to rewind, pause, play again until you feel comfortable with those, and try others like it. You can always go back in the notes and try some others that are there as well. Hope that helps.